welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. All right, so here we are, another episode here, Real Estate Mogul MD. Thank you for giving us a listen today. And today's exciting. We have the CEO of EntreMD, founder of EntreMD Business School for Physicians, which is actually makes her a business coach as well. A great podcast. You got to check out her podcast. Speaker, author, and member of Forbes Business Council. Dr. Una, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
So I'm excited to jump right into this, but I just want to get a little bit of background for the listeners on your medical journey up to this point. So I always just love giving us a brief summary of how you got started and where you're at right now.
Yeah, so I grew up in many countries, but the medical part of it started in Nigeria. My parents are both doctors. My dad is a surgeon. My mom is a clinical pharmacist. And, Nigeria, there is this trifecta. You can be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. Those are kind of your options. In all fairness, my parents weren't really like that, but I grew up around a lot of medical people and, so I just leaned towards that. I remember people telling me it's really tough to be a doctor, all the hoops you have to go through. And I was like, okay, so it sounds like that's what I should do then and prove them wrong. That was kind of my thing. And so, we used the European system, which means you go from high school straight to med school. Mm-hmm. And so I went to med school, did 6 years of that. While I was in training, people would ask me, what would you like to be after you're done? I'm like, I don't know, but I know I don't want to be a pediatrician. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be an OBGYN, but when I looked at the lifestyle, I was like, I don't think I could be delivering babies till the day I retire. I think that's just too much, like delivering babies at night till I retire. Yeah. And so I was, but I was like, where can I still get the mommies? And it turned out it was pediatrics. And so I decided to become a pediatrician, moved over to the US, did my training in Newark, New Jersey, which was, it was such a phenomenal experience. It is one of those things, it's hard work. So I say I'll never do it again, but I really loved it when I did do it. And, got my first job, my first attending job, which was super exciting. And, I still remember the day I saw my first patient and I had this anticlimactic feeling like, so I've arrived. This is it. Where do we go from here? Like, I just do what I did, 20 times a day till I retire. Like, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. And then so that itch for something else started. I had the opportunity to start a private practice. Because I was ignorant, I was like, yes, let's do that. And started it and really was a school of hard knocks because I thought being a physician was enough to run a successful practice. I did not realize I would have to learn business skills and all of that. And so it was hard the first year. But then I learned the lesson that, all business skills are learnable. I learned that from Brian Tracy and I started acquiring those skills and the practice went on to do really, really well. That was 14 years ago. Still have the practice till today. Wow. Yeah. So from the medical standpoint, that's kind of the way that played out.
And so you said that you didn't want to be in pediatrics and then you ended up there. So why didn't you want to be there in the first place?
I think I was like, it's kids. How do you figure out what they want? And, I think that's really what it was, crying kids. I was like, I don't want to do that. But the group of people I had the softest spot for is the mommies, right? There is a vulnerability of, whether you're having kids or you can't have kids or you have fibroids and they may make you not have kids. There's a certain vulnerability around that. I'm just like, I just want to support them. And so it really was the mothers were my inspiration for becoming a pediatrician because I was like, I want to support them on this journey because motherhood is hard. It's like your body keeps changing. Then half the time you think you don't know what you're doing and all of that. So it's like, I would love to support them. And so that's how I got in pediatrics.
Connections to the mothers, connection to the mommies. And the screaming babies piece, how often is that? I mean, is that a challenge for you still though?
No. I mean, that went away the second I made the decision, right? Because at the end of the day, things are difficult sometimes because we're resisting it, right? Like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. But once I was like, I wanted to support the mommies, then the babies, that was no longer an issue. So it was never a problem.
Yeah.
And I have 4 kids. So let's say I got over that real quick.
You had to. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And being a father myself, I mean, being able to bring the babies in for that professional care, that passion, like you can tell when you connect with somebody, and because we don't know, like we're just bringing help, please, or is my baby okay? So it's definitely a moment of gratitude for all parents when we get to bring our babies in and see you. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And truthfully, every kid, every family got 2 doctors when they got me, right? I was a doctor to the mom and the doctor to the kid in a way. And I still remember a mom going like, doctor, we know, we come here because you're like our therapist. And that doesn't mean I was doing any therapy. It's just that I saw them and they could see that I saw them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's been very rewarding for me.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense for the mommy and for the kids. And now you said you started in New Jersey when you came over. Was that in pediatrics then as well too?
Yeah. So I was born here. I was in the U.S. till I was about 6. And then, my father's like, I want you guys to have the culture and all that stuff. I totally did not agree with his decision, but I was 6. I didn't get to vote. And so we went back and he was like, whenever you're done with college, you can come back to the U.S. And so I did my entire, medical school in Nigeria, in the University of Nigeria, and then, applied for residency and all of those things, and then moved back to New Jersey to do my training, my residency in pediatrics.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you came out into a W-2 position from there, right?
Correct. So my very first, the regular pediatric resident, my final year, I was interviewing and all of that. And I got this job in Georgia. I knew I wanted to move to Georgia. It's just the pace that I like. The houses are really big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. The cities are really big. And so I wanted to move down here. So I interviewed, got a job in Stockbridge, Georgia, and started that. I had no intentions of starting a practice. I did not identify as an entrepreneur. I was just going to work a job and do my thing and retire. So I started off here. I was probably there for about 15 months, which is it's a very funny story, I'll tell you, because I started the job and I only signed a 1-year contract. And after the first 9 months, my boss is like, well, here's a 5-year contract. And to put this in perspective, I had been a resident for 3 years. I had been married for 3 years. So my definition of forever at that time was 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? And so when he says, this is your 5-year contract, I'm like, I can't, there's no way I can do that. And I had to move anyway. And then so he said, if you're not going to stay here, you should start your own practice. I was like, well, I don't know if you know this, but that's not how this works. Like, people don't start a private practice 9 months out of residency. And it's like, truthfully, you've been doing almost everything you're going to need to do for it here. And so you can start. If you have questions and stuff, I'm happy to answer them. And I think that's what first planted that seed of, you could start a practice, and set me on this journey of entrepreneurship. And, I don't know, this is 3 companies later. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, so what were some of those first signs or kind of symptoms? But it sounded like there's that person, that almost like a mentor that allowed you that opportunity and pointed it out for you, right?
Yeah, I think it started with, being an employee, but showing up as an owner. I think that was the starting point, right? Because yes, I would go to work and I would see the patients, But I always wanted to know, like, how do we code properly so we can get paid properly for what we do? I would have staff meetings, even though I didn't need to make sure the team was on the same page and we could be, very efficient and all of those things. I would go out and meet referral sources like, hey, would you send us patients and all that, all of which I didn't have to do. Like, if I didn't do them, there wouldn't be any problems. And I think that's what prompted him to then say, when he knew I wouldn't stay, like, listen, you're already on that path. You may not know it, but you're on that path and you want to start doing those things. So I think it's a combination. And that's why in my work with physicians, I always tell them, I say, even if you work for somebody, you own a company and the name of your company is Dr. You Incorporated. And if you own that, you set yourself up either to build a brand that could be very profitable, or when it's time to own your business, you're not starting from scratch, or you can negotiate for raises and stay in your own job. Like, everything works, but it starts from radical responsibility, right? Working for your own company, whether you have what is considered a traditional company or not.
Yeah. Those are great points through there. And going from that difference of being an intrapreneur to an entrepreneur, and there's so much in that, and it's almost like being a resident of an entrepreneur while you're working, and that's taking extreme ownership. There's a book called Extreme Ownership, one of my favorites, by a couple of servicemen who had written this, and it was their perspective being out in the field. Because if you don't own this, Dr. Una, what's going to be the outcome? I mean, it gives me goosebumps to think about it. And if you can take that perspective and shift it back into your everyday thing and understand, why am I coding this way? What does that mean if I do it this way? I'm not just going through these rhythms, right? How can I help? How can I bring more value to the business? And you mentioned that, you could negotiate a different path inside of your business, because if you go into any relationship saying, how can I bring more value to this relationship? Guess what that brings more value to? You. Dr. You Incorporated. I love that. I love that, Dr. Una. That was awesome.
Yeah, and that's the ultimate win-win situation, right? Which is how really we want every relationship or arrangement that we have to be, where the person is bringing really great value to you and you're bringing value to them. And sometimes people are like, well, if I take radical ownership, they can take advantage of me. And I'm like, nobody can. Like, once you understand you work for yourself, you realize nobody can take advantage of you, because even if you're treated poorly, even if they don't pay you what you deserve and all of that stuff, you've built all these skills that are yours to keep. It's portable wealth. If they won't acknowledge it, somebody will, right? And it will make up for, it's almost like you were paid to learn this, like your salary was payment for you to learn this, and you can take it somewhere else where you can monetize it even better. And so, especially in times we are in for physicians, like, everybody's an entrepreneur. You can choose to not own your business. Everybody's an entrepreneur, like, right, with intrapreneurship being under it. So yeah. So
if we flip the script on this, then Dr. Una, and we are building leaders to grow our new companies, right? How does that work when we invest in our team and we do teach them to grow and separate? And, so we've paid them to learn and then they leave. How does that make you feel?
Well, the deal is this: people are going to leave anyway. I used to worry about that a lot, right? I'm investing in all these people. I'm training them and teaching them and spending my hours and all of that. And what if they up and leave? Well, I've heard, and I try to remember who said this. It might be Brian Tracy, but he said, but what if they stay and you don't train them, right? You're the one who ends up with the crappy employees, right? Yeah. And so we have to be okay with people leaving. I look at the big companies. I mean, like, imagine a company like Coca-Cola and their VP of sales ups and leaves. Like, that's very different from, a medical assistant or a doctor leaving my practice. This is someone running a division that's, controlling multiple companies. And guess what? Coca-Cola is still here. So apparently we can be okay, even if they do leave, right? So for me, the way I look at it is I work on my skill to make sure I'm really good at getting great talent on board. The second thing I do is I make sure that I work on my skill of getting really great at making them the best versions of themselves. Some of them will stay, some of them will leave. Right? Regardless, for the ones that stay, that's a huge win for me. For the ones that go, they've helped me become even better at training people. So I can do it bigger. I can do it faster. Right? And so it's not really a loss. You know what I'm saying? And so I had to come to terms with, I had to decide to be okay if people leave. If they leave, I just got a lot of education on how to train people. And that's it. People are not going to stay. like everybody's not going to stay. That's just not the way it works.
Yeah. And I say this so many times too, Dr. Una, is if there's a purpose, there should be a process. And it takes volume to create these processes. So just think of as you're nurturing these relationships and building these people, right? We're raising leaders, and that's where it sets you apart. It's giving you the opportunity to create that process because there is big purpose. And whether that purpose is within the company or not for that particular person, there is the ability to create these processes and go over. Because yes, that first time through, I'm figuring out. Second time, I start recording my process. Third time, I'm going by my process, revising it. Fourth time, I'm going to have somebody else go through the process and see how well we did, right? So there's so many opportunities to do that. And what if they do stay, right? That's just a great piece. And I watched a movie yesterday. My wife and I were sitting around, and it is a ridiculous movie. It's called The Internship. And it's about Google. It's a comedy. I think it's like Owen Wilson and I forget the other guy's name from Chicago. Anyway, it's foul language, all kinds of bad stuff. The idea, though, thinking about it in Google and their ability to select the right people, build a culture, obviously, but select the right people. If you can become the best at finding the right people that aligns with your mission and your vision and your culture, tell me how much that sets a practice apart, right?
Oh, that means everything for any business, really, because in the beginning of a business, you need the owner to thrive, right? The owner's going to get down, do the grunt work and all of that. But after that, your ability to build an entity that can work without you, your ability to build an entity that gives you the freedom to live life and, on your own terms is all tied to the team. Mm-hmm. Your ability to execute a big vision is tied to the team. So if you can figure out team, then you're set apart from, I don't want to say the masses, that sounds bad, the pack, pick a word, but you're set apart. It is everything. For instance, I haven't set foot in my practice in the last 19 months and it's grown. Mm-hmm. And that's because there's a team in place and they know what to do and they're making things happen. And this is in the middle of, like a recession, mm-hmm. and they're getting stuff done. It's everything.
Yep. So being able to pick the right people, obviously, and then aligning with the culture, building the culture, aligning with the mission and vision. But it's just as important to know when to let somebody go. Look at that face. And the listeners can't see that face, Dr. Una. Tell me a little bit about that.
I made that face because this is when I talk to doctors, either they're running their practices or non-medical businesses and stuff like this. This comes up so many times. And for me, when I first started, it's a very painful thing, right? Especially when you're in the beginning phases of your business. You really rely on the person. You're not really good at hiring. So you have no idea, like in your mind, there's only one of this person in the universe. And you've put so much into training them. So it's like all my training down the drain. You may make it mean something about you. Like if I need to de-hire this person, then that must mean there's something I did wrong. So all the feelings, all the mindset drama, all the fear. But one of the best things you can do for yourself and for your employee is de-hire them when they're not a good fit.
De-hire.
It is one of the best things.
Yeah.
First of all, an employee who is not a good fit is so expensive because number one, they're not getting the job done. Number two, they are killing your culture. Because what you're telling the rest of the team, especially if they're high flyers, you are telling them that we practice sanctioned incompetence here. If you are incompetent, that is okay. A high flyer is not looking to be incompetent, so they are going to leave. Chances are they are going to leave. I just had somebody in the EntreMD business school, and she was talking about, we just talked about this, that's why I made that face. And she had somebody she needed to dehire, and she didn't want to do it. Eventually, she got up one morning, made it a thing, had the meeting, fired the person. And she had her A player, her key employee, walk up to her, thank her for doing it. And she said to her that I was actually about to start looking because this person was still here. And she was like, I had no idea what I would have done if this person quit. Right? And why was she going to quit? Because of sanctioned incompetence. The boss is not leading. The boss is just like, yeah, some people do their job, some people don't. It's okay here. It's too expensive. It's so expensive.
So when you start out in a scenario, especially in early entrepreneur, early business, where you're building, you're growing, it's think, okay, I need to replace myself. And I say this all the time. You've probably read it in other books. Learn, implement, and outsource. In order to do this, I need to find somebody similar to me. You know, if I could find somebody or two people at 80% of what I do, then hey, we're in good spot. But in this perspective, Dr. Una, I feel like we often find ourselves in a need versus want scenario. And then when we have this person, we start delegating responsibilities and getting this stuff off. We get latched to it. And then we don't want this inconvenience, right? And we're stuck in the need versus the want scenario. And just like in real estate, if I'm making an offer on a house that I want rather than what I need, or if I'm accepting an offer on a house that I need versus want, it's a huge, huge difference, right? So the other thing on this too, in that need versus want, not wanting to be inconvenienced, dealing with it, letting it roll. It's there's a saying that goes, what we permit, we promote. And from the top down side of it, this is culture cancer. And I've been in the same scenario, Dr. Una, where it's this one person who creates this thing where we're promoting it because we're permitting it, and you have the opportunity of losing some of your greatest people. Because I know you do too, Dr. Una, is we create this sphere around us of positivity, of exceptional people, because we want to keep pushing us. And if there's somebody that slips inside of our sphere, guess what? We limit our association then at that point. So if we allow this, if we promote this, then it's a cancer within. And I'll top this all off. I think this is a Brian Tracy thing, right? Eat the frog. Isn't that Brian Tracy? Get it done. Brian Tracy. Get it done, because get over it, get over yourself, get over the inconvenience. That little bit of pain can save you years, can save you literally millions of dollars. So eat the frog, right?
Yeah. And you know, sometimes some people like, I feel bad about it. And I'm like, okay, so that makes you normal, right? Yeah. Like the person who go like, I am so excited, I get to fire people today, is probably a psychopath, right? Yeah. And so if you feel like you feel bad about it, then you're human, and that's great. So go do it. Yeah. Right? So you don't need to feel good about it. That's not going to happen.
And the idea of this journey, and building relationships and being a leader and being a boss, there's this weird thing. Well, I'm going to feel bad about it, right? But going into, I have to understand that this is a business, right? We grow leaders, we grow people, but this is a business. And as part of that, you have to dehire people. You have to do it. And tell me a little bit about this. This is interesting. When this happens, when you have that conversation with somebody, and I can literally go in and I invest a lot into the people I work with, and I feel like I've given you this and I want to leave it. And, on the same terms, like, unfortunately, this is just not working out. But what happens on the other side of that table, Dr. Una, that you've seen, like, it almost like the saying of money doesn't change the person, it magnifies the person. And I think in the same situation, a de-hire will really magnify the person. So sometimes you go through this process and you say, hey, it's really not going to work out. And then this switch snaps sometimes. Like, and then there's like instant gratification of, I've made the right decision. Like, so how has your experience gone in, of it magnifying the person when you de-hire them?
Well, so in my personal experience, I have not had people act completely loony after they got de-hired. I've had tears. I have had, well, you're not a good boss. And I'm okay with that. Like, I know who I am. I've had things like that, but a number of people have left really quietly. But regardless of their response, it has always felt like I was running 100 meters and it was with, it was like huddles, right? All over. It's like all the obstacles were taken out and it's like, boom, let's go. It has always felt that way. Always. Because, a lot of times you're de-hiring because they've become an obstacle. They're not helping the mission. They're hurting the mission. It's always felt like, wow. This is old. I'm probably dating myself, but the old movie Annie, like when they took the kid out of the orphanage and everybody's like, oh, we're so sad to see you go. And then once the car drove away, everybody's like, yeah, and there was a wild party. It literally feels that way.
Yeah.
It really literally feels that way afterwards because it's like, I'm free now. Like, let's go. 100 miles an hour. Let's do it.
And when you remove these hurdles, it makes me think of that, back to that need versus want, allowing this because I don't want this inconvenience. But what I hear you saying is like, it then magnifies what I was allowing, how much work that was creating for myself, the cost of those things, because we were compensating the incompetency, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Right. We were allowing it to happen because we didn't want that inconvenience. Wow. So yeah.
It's one of those things. It's one of the yuckier, if you want to see it, that quote unquote yuckier parts of entrepreneurship. But when done, the ROI on it is huge.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst things you can do for your company is keep the wrong person on.
Yes, absolutely. And that's across the board. That's medicine, that's real estate, that's construction, that's anything that has starts with a biz and ends with an S. That's it, right?
Yeah.
And even in personal relationships too. I mean, that could just go across the board. I'm definitely not able to speak on that. But just saying that, hey, this can be across the board. Keeping the wrong person because you don't want the inconvenience is detrimental.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. So this is just a piece of this entrepreneur part. We talked about, some signs of how you got started. We've talked about hiring, building, growing leaders. What if they stay, right? That's a cool part. What's been the biggest challenge for you throughout the process, Dr. Una?
I mean, the challenge has always been me. It's always been. It's never been anything external. And it really is me shying away or maybe not wanting to do what is necessary, aka pay the price to become the version of me required for my next step, right? And so if we look at my journey, when it was time to get into medical school, there was the thing of, well, you're not that kind of person. You're pretty young. I got into medical school at 16. Don't ask.
Oh, wow.
That's a whole other podcast episode. But I got it. I got in at 16 and it was kind of like, you're not the kind of person who can do this. And I had to have that evolution to become that kind of person, right? When it was time to get into residency, like, okay, but you came from a whole different culture, a whole different country. You practice tropical medicine. This is temperate medicine. Like, you're not the kind of person, right, who can do this. I had to do another evolution. I had to rise to become a different version of myself. It was time to start a private practice. Like, well, you don't talk about money. You are introverted introvert. So clearly marketing and selling, that's not your thing. So you can't do this. You can't thrive at this. You may You may pass through and maybe make a buck here and there, but you're not going to be great at this. And I had to say, no, those are business skills. I can learn to network. It's not a personality type. I can learn to network. I can learn to market my practice. I can learn to do all of those things. I can learn to look at a profit and loss statement without breaking out in hives. I can become that person, you know? And then when all the changes in the healthcare space started happening, and I'm like, okay, we don't have to live like we can leverage entrepreneurship so we can live life and practice medicine on terms. Whether you want to have a practice, you want to be a coach, you want to be a speaker, it doesn't matter. It's time to take control. And it's like, who are you to talk to physicians? Who are you to tell them you don't have an MBA? You don't, like, all you have is one practice that you built and that is thriving. That's it. Like, who are you to do that? And I'm like, well, I have to evolve again. Right. And I had to do training to become a speaker. I had to decide to start a podcast and all of these things. Right. And it's all pain, right? When we talk about it, evolution, it's all pain. It's all discomfort. Let me not call it pain. Mm-hmm. Right. And then, you know, when I was like, okay, we're going to start the EntreMD business school, that was the biggest one. I was like, hang on, like Harvard has a business school and Emory has a business school, and say, what? You're starting a business school? Like, you're going to help people start successful businesses? You're nuts, right? And I can tell you that the first time I talked about it, what I felt was shame and embarrassment, because I was like, how can you say that? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, the obstacle is always, it was never anything on the outside. And I'm like, no, but I can help them do this. I have proof of concept, and I built it, and I would go out and I talk about it, and I would get better and better at getting people results bigger, faster. So it's always been me, right? It's always been me.
So what I hear is in that evolution inside of Dr. Una is limiting beliefs.
Lots of them.
Yeah. So, and you talked about a lot about limiting beliefs in personal development. First of all, realization, seeing this or understanding, and you speak amazingly on how it makes you feel. So being able to communicate how we feel and tying these feelings to certain words, and seeing what's the underlying source of this, really helps you then make that change in personal development. So if the biggest challenge was that evolution in overcoming these limiting beliefs, because you have the product, you have the empirical evidence, what's been your biggest opportunity?
Well, I think if I look at the opportunities, kind of, yeah, that was just a limiting belief that came up right there. But
yes,
but this is what it is, and I have never really thought about it as an opportunity, but it is the amount of pain in the physician community, because that was the match for what I was trying to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we look at the physician community and we see the loss of autonomy, and we see the number of physician suicides, and we see the level of burnout, and we see the number of private practices closing, when we see that, you know, in the finance world, when they talk about bad deals, they call them doctor deals, and people having doctors are helpers. Like, most of them, when you talk to them, why do you go into medicine? I wanted to help people, right? And they have all these things they want to help people do, have no clue how to build business systems around them so they have the freedom to do it, right? Because if you can't monetize it, you really can't do it. It's an economic world. And for all these things, in my mind, entrepreneurship is the answer. Entrepreneurship puts you back in control. Entrepreneurship helps you understand how to live life, like build your dream life and your dream business at the same time. It's what gives you financial freedom. So now you have options, right? So back to the need versus want. Like, this is what I want to do. I'm not doing anything I need to do. I'm doing stuff I want to do, right? And so it's for want of a better phrase, it's a pretty dark time in the physician community. And that was kind of my biggest opportunity. It's an opportunity to serve. It's an opportunity for me to be a leader in this space. It's an opportunity to help physicians. And we've been doing this for the business school just turned 4, like literally just had a birthday. And we've helped hundreds of people build businesses they love and build lives they want at the same time. It's just magical to watch. And that was the opportunity. And for me, this is like my life's work. And I've never worked a day in EntreMD. I'm just doing what I want, serving my community.
Passion. And congratulations on 4 years. That's amazing. And I want to tie this into real estate, because like I had mentioned before, whether it's in medicine or real estate or construction or whatever industry, all of this aligns. This is life, right? This is life. So all of these pieces align. And the ability to stop trading time for money is your ability to build these systems that don't require you for them to operate. And that to me is what an entrepreneur is. And if you don't do that, then you are self-employed, right? There's the Kiyosaki's book, Cash Flow Quadrant. It goes into that amazing relationship of all of this. Being a true business owner is one that doesn't require us for it to function, in that 19 months, right? 19 months. That's 100% the reality of it in this world. Is there any, I guess, direction that you've taken, Dr. Una, when it comes to passive investing? Because you've got these platforms where now you've got an operating business, you've got the EntreMD business school, right? So are you investing anywhere else besides in these businesses that you're creating?
Yeah, so I have the businesses, and then I was gonna say we invest in real estate because my husband does a lot of the real estate investing. So I tag on, like we are pregnant when the woman's pregnant. Yeah. So that's kind of that's how this is playing out. But we do quite a bit of passive investing, and then there are some rental properties that we own. But yeah, he deals with the rental properties.
Very interesting.
Meetings for the passive.
And when you say passive, it's probably syndication.
Syndications.
Yes. That's the absolute passive piece. And the opposite of that could be complete opposite, just depending on the systems or the business that you've created around the rentals. Tell me a little bit about your experience in the rental world.
Yeah, so I couldn't give you too much on that, because I'm more on the passive side of things. The active rentals, my husband runs those, and he has a team because he believes in team even more than I do. Mm-hmm. So he has a team that does a lot of running that for him. So it really is fairly passive on his side. Well, right? You saying that, understanding that it's not passive at all, but as far as active rental real estate goes, it's somewhat passive.
So I'll just tie all of that back in, because I will also echo that when you create the right systems, and I tell everybody too that we work with, is it's never going to be 100% passive when you own active, when you're an active real estate investor. But systems, process, people, these are the things of how we create and build businesses that allow us to mitigate the time that's involved in these pieces, right? And when we are active investor, there are what I call stackable returns that we cannot appreciate in the passive world. So there's a great way to find this blend in mixing it all together. I think the EntreMD is a beautiful approach to, because that, and not only if the listeners wanted to reach out to you and connect on that platform and learn more about the business piece, and whether it's the time is now for them to make that change, or if the time is now for them to be have the ability to realize the opportunity for intrapreneurship, where they're at, is always a good time, right? So they could apply these this philosophy in the real estate world. Hands down, you and I feel like we're on the same page when it comes to business and building these relationships. This could be implemented throughout their entire life, even in the personal relationships. So I love the question: what would you go back and tell yourself, Dr. Una, this strapping young lady coming out of residency in Newark, New Jersey, setting in on this first 1-year contract in pediatrics, maybe getting over that hump of not the babies, it's the mamas, what would you tell yourself?
I think I would tell myself to not wait for permission. Like the dream life you want to live, create it. Play full offense. Don't wait for a boss to make certain situations line up. Don't wait for market conditions to make your business act in a certain, like, don't do any of that. Like, start now. You're the boss. You're the architect, if you will. Create what you want. Go for what you want. I held back for so long, so long. Thought other people were better than me, thought there were things I couldn't have, thought there were things I couldn't become. I'm like, forget all that. Like, just go for it.
Yeah. Don't wait for permission.
Yeah.
I like that. And I kind of tying along on that too is it doesn't have to happen that particular instant. And so many things of setting up good businesses is not going to be, overnight, right? It's not going to be overnight success. Don't rely on instant gratification when you're not waiting for permission. So take action, continue to take action. You're going to get defeated. You're going to get plenty of no's. You're going to get plenty of, you can't do that. Dr. Una, you don't have a chance, right? You've got to overcome all of these. And I've heard it said, it's wonderfully said, they're going to be right every single time until they're wrong. And when they're wrong, that's the difference maker, right? So going into don't wait for permission, go out, get it, make it happen, and just keep moving forward. And it's just great advice. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, Dr. Una, I've got a bunch of different ways. I've got websites, the podcast. They got to check out the podcast, the EntreMD podcast, and that's just loaded with information. And most of the time it's you talking from your experience, your instances, things that have come up. And what's the best way for the listeners to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So first of all, I would definitely say the podcast we've had for over 3 years at this point, over 300
Congratulations.
Episodes. Yeah.
Well over 300 episodes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's huge.
And it's like your podcast in the sense that it's no fluff. It's like the real deal. It's the real things that happen in entrepreneurship. A lot of my stories, a lot of times I would do something. My businesses are labs. That's what I call them now. I'll go experiment, do something, come back, say, okay, this is what we did. It worked, go do it. And so it's something really powerful. So that's EntreMD. The EntreMD podcast, you're already on a podcast platform. So just search for it and subscribe. And thank you. The other thing is, if you're thinking, man, I listened to this and I've wanted to start a business or I'm already doing a business, but I'm struggling. I didn't know there was someone who could help me with that. You can always schedule a call with my team. So it's entremd.com/call. And then other than that, my email, Dr. Una at EntreMD. So DRUNA at EntreMD.com.
And Entra is Entra is ENTREMD. EntreMD, just like entrepreneur. Right?
Entrepreneur, yes.
Yes, beautiful. I was having a conversation. We're filming this actually the day after July 4th, which is the celebration of independence here in the United States. I was sitting by the pool yesterday with some friends of ours, and it was a married couple, and they were talking about having these great ideas where they have this invention idea, and there's this connection. We're conditioned to have this connection of this overnight success. If I could just invent something, if I could just get this Powerball ticket, if I, could just be an influencer on social media. And it's this conditioned perspective of overnight success, and it's not real. And what I just wanted to echo on here at the end of this recording is just like what you say, don't wait for permission to take action. But don't be conditioned like that action is going to lead into instant gratification, because it's for those who can delay gratification will the biggest, strongest, greatest return come for. So in that conversation, I was telling them that I'm working on my 10-year overnight success. I'm working on my 15-year overnight success. And that's where you can step away from this conditioned thing that we have going on in the world. And you've done it, Dr. Una, you've done it. Your experience speaks for itself. I just want to wish you the best in your journey. And every time that you have this limiting belief pop in your head, you think of me. Come on.
I'll do that.
Yes. As soon as it comes in. Yes. As soon as it comes in, and you just accept it, be present in the moment. Say, yes, I could take that, but guess what? I don't have to. Right. And move on. And you've done a great job with that. So I encourage all the listeners to reach out to Dr. Una. And like I say, if it's not right now, if the moment's not right now, if you've already done it and you need help, if the moment's not right now, if you have the opportunity to be that intrapreneur and learn, take extreme ownership of your situation, reach out to Dr. Una and learn more about this platform. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, Dr. Una. It's been a blast.
Thank you. And if I may,
yes.
I want to thank you for what you do for the physician community for a number of reasons. One is that we need this. We're at a time where as a community, we need this. We have the beautiful medical education, no business education. And it's almost like it's just that little thing. If we get this right, we can go back to our control, our autonomy, and all of those things. And also because you're legit, right? In the sense that, and that's not to say I ever thought you were not legit, but what I mean by that is these are real conversations. For instance, what you keep talking about delayed gratification and all of that, there are so many people that are like, oh, I'm just going to do this one post on social media and I'm made, right? Mm-hmm. And you and I understand that it's going to take a lot of no's, a lot of rejections, a lot of pain, a lot of that. And all of a sudden, you will succeed, right? Yes. And so for people to hear that, which will save them from so much pain and suffering, that's really amazing. So I'm so grateful for what you do. And if you're listening to this and you haven't subscribed to the podcast, come on. Subscribe to his podcast, follow him, and listen to every episode.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Una. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, with all of our guests, because I'm outside. I'm an outsider looking in. I'm not a physician. I work directly with physicians, but just it's a different perspective. So getting to spin that and have that conversation. And we touched on it so many times through the conversation here is it's life. You may maybe have a business word in front of it, but it's life. And implementing this through the years, I've become a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better leader. And it's all relative to the personal development that it's required to be an entrepreneur.
Love it. And I say that to everyone. And now my students have started saying that too, where the best thing about entrepreneurship is not the impact you have, even though it will be huge. It's not the financial freedom you create, even though that is life changing for you and your family. It's who you become in the process.
Yes.
And who you become in the process touches everything. So yeah, entrepreneurship is like the absolute best. I love it.
Great note to end on. Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you. Hey, if you were listening to this episode, I just want to thank you for your time. It means a lot to us. Time is so important, but the attention is the biggest piece. Because even if we have your time, but we didn't have your attention, we didn't get to tickle the old brain buds here and really make a difference. And I think that's what means the most to me. So thank you for your attention today. If you have any questions for us, you can reach us at info@physicianwellsystems.com. If you would like to be a guest, let's join the conversation. Come on, leave us a review. We appreciate it. Until next time, Real Estate Mogul MD, thank you for listening.